some point the violence could make its way this way.
Stuck in Peru.
Like, protesters are stopping the taxis, they're breaking the windows.
Miami-Dade first responders journey to escape.
Have any of our constituents' rates been reduced today? As we all sit here, they haven't. Have rates gone down? They haven't.
Insuring the insurers. Will struggling Florida homeowners feel the effects?
Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets promoted. She'll be with us live.
A longtime South Florida columnist heads for his next chapter.
Miami is just one of the great news towns in the world. I've been so honored, so lucky. And I'm hanging it up too. After 33 years at Channel 10, a fond farewell.
The big stories of the week, all on This Week in South Florida.
Good morning. Glad you could join us. I'm Michael Putney on my final edition of This Week in South Florida.
We're going to make it good for you.
I'm Glenna Milberg, and as we come on the air today, actually within the last hour, the U.S. Embassy in Peru alerting Americans about reports of what could be a general strike in the Cusco area near Machu Picchu. They say may affect transportation in that city, meaning airport departures. Why is that relevant? Well, 2 South Florida first responders are among those stranded in the political chaos in Peru, are supposed to be on their way home right now. They and hundreds of tourists to Machu Picchu who find themselves stuck in increasingly violent political protests. The Peruvian government suspended the lifeline of train service to cities from where they were to fly home in those ongoing protests after the arrest of Peru's former president.
Miami-Dade Police Sergeant Josena Munoz tells Local 10 she has secured a flight out of Cusco today. Miami-Dade Fire Captain Brian Vega made an incredible journey out of the town where he had been stranded, and he videotaped the ordeal. Christina Vasquez has that story.
A lot of emotions coursing through me right now.
Miami-Dade Fire Captain Brian Vega, one of hundreds of tourists stranded in Peru.
We're on the 5th day today.
So we have a group of 20 and we're going to try walking out.
Shooting this video for you in a town near Machu Picchu Saturday.
What are the age groups, more or less?
Older. The oldest is probably 74, so hopefully we can all make it.
Maybe the safest option is to walk back along the railroad tracks.
Documenting how the day started with dismay.
I've got blisters on my feet and I'm just pretty exhausted.
After take a look.
Seems like helicopters probably not an option to get out of here.
Air evacuations for stranded tourists Saturday and Sunday.
El tiempo?
Suspended due to weather factors.
There's a list of apparently who's getting priority for the helicopters, but we're not on it.
The websites for the local government don't exactly work.
Peru plunged into political turmoil after its president was arrested for illegally trying to dissolve Congress. Caught in a political storm of protests, blockades, closed airports, and suspended train service, tourists.
I'm out of breath right now because I just ran over here.
But then early Saturday evening, Captain Vega phoned in with an update.
It's just been announced by police that the train is going to be available. We are boarding right now.
Speaking with us as hundreds began boarding a train.
People are relieved, but there's a little bit of panic as well. As you can see, everyone up here.
But by nightfall,
We're having to finish our trek here.
a boulder on the tracks blocked train access, prompting this trek to the next town on foot in the thick of darkness. Yet in the light ahead, hope that one step closer to coming home.
Final portion of train tracks before we get to a car.
What an ordeal. Captain Vega did make it safely to a Cusco hotel where today he plans to catch a flight to Lima, working to get home to his wife and children before Christmas.
The captain sent us video from last night as he finally met up with Sergeant Munoz.
Hi, I'm Captain Brian Vega from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue.
And Sergeant Josena Munoz from the Miami-Dade Police Department.
We're finally able to reunite. Want to let everyone know we're safe. We're going to be heading out tomorrow to Lima and then back to Miami, and
excited to go home.
Very excited and relieved.
Godspeed to them. The State Department has been tweeting updates for Americans stranded this morning. We began with the latest update at the top of this program. Here's another from overnight. It reads, the government of Peru is coordinating limited resumed rail service to help travelers depart Aguascalientes, Machu Picchu Village. Trains travel to a designated point, and passengers will travel the rest of the way to Cusco in other vehicles.
And this one from yesterday was sent when the weather prevented initial attempts to evacuate the most vulnerable foreign tourists by helicopter. They will reattempt to do that when the weather improves. We will continue to monitor the grave situation in Peru and bring you updates on our local South Florida first responders and their efforts to come home.
And thank goodness for internet, and we can keep in touch with them all along that way. All right, next, the plan and the pushback on the state's new property insurance laws.
What those laws do and what they don't, and why, when we come back.
To my dear friend Michael Putney, a journalist of the highest quality, but first and foremost, an amazing human being. Someone who truly has reflected the best of our community and worked so hard to help this community to grow and thrive. I am personally wishing you a happy, healthy, well-deserved retirement after more than 30 years at Miami ABC. You've had an incredible career and impact on our community. You've remained in pursuit of the truth. You've covered our local politics and world events with conviction and authenticity, the mark of a true journalist, and one that we will all truly miss. I send you and your family the best as you seek new adventures, and just say, please, let's continue our friendship. Thank you, Michael.
Yella Levine Cava for that lovely message, unexpected and very appreciated.
There's more.
In fewer than 48 hours this week, Florida lawmakers passed sweeping changes meant to stabilize the insurance market in the state and reverse the spiraling cost of property insurance. Governor signed those bills on Friday.
The plan addresses the cost of lawsuits and the cost of reinsurance for insurance companies, with the hope a stabilized market will trickle down and lower costs for consumers. Opponents say hope does not pay the bills. So let's take a dive into those details with two South Florida state reps who lived it all this week. Tom Fabricio, Republican representing Miami Lakes and Northwest Miami-Dade, and Hillary Cassell, newly elected Democrat representing Davie and Hollywood, Hallandale Beach, Dania Beach. To both of you, good morning. This is so dense, and we are counting on you to sort of detail things for us. Tom, if we can start with you. This was a Republican bill passed by party lines, supermajority, and the biggest criticism is not necessarily, well, there was criticism of the components, but the biggest criticism was that there is nothing to immediately help people struggling to pay the bills. Why not?
Good morning, Glenn and Michael. And Michael, congratulations on your retirement. I'll mention it later, but you are from the era of my father in journalism here in South Florida, and you certainly will be missed. We don't always agree, but I appreciate your service to our community.
Thank you, sir.
With regard to the bill, this is we are in a massive insurance crisis, and this crisis has been long coming. We have in 2021, we had approximately 116,000 cases in litigation filed in this state, as compared to what we've been seeing in the other 49 states. So it's a dramatic problem. The problem that we're trying to solve, and the problem that was solved with this legislation, will allow us to continue moving forward, and will allow the insurance market to not fully collapse and put everyone into citizens. That's a big deal. And that talks about how bad things really are.
Yeah.
So
let me jump in, Tom, if I can. You're absolutely right. Nobody wanted the insurance market to collapse, but Hillary Cassell, it seems like the prime beneficiary of what the legislature did was to prop up all the insurance companies, give them what, $1 billion in a reinsurance fund? They really were the big winners in this deal.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. The reality is, in a period from May until now, December, the Republican legislature has given insurance industries $3 billion in bailout at the backs and on the backs of consumers. This bill really eroded any availability for a consumer to hold an insurance company accountable in the event that they have a claim and the insurance company doesn't do right by them, all while giving them a $3 billion bailout, when, quite frankly, when you actually look at the reinsurance program put forth, it doesn't provide everything that the reinsurance and the rating agencies are going to require. So once again, the bailout isn't going to be sufficient to stabilize the reinsurance market, which everybody agrees, regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, that reinsurance is probably the biggest issue facing Floridians in this crisis, because it accounts for 49% of what people are paying in their premiums.
Okay,
I gotta jump in here.
Tom, let me just, you talk next, but we need to relog you on because we're having a little TD difficulty here. So we're going to take a quick break, relog on, and we'll pick up right where you left off when we come back.
Whoever it was that once said that no man is indispensable clearly never knew the unparalleled Michael Putney, the Dean of South Florida journalism, who for over 4 decades has been the gold standard in showing all of us what it is to cover and engage a community with ethics, with passion, with insight, and with the very, very highest of standards and integrity. Michael, you spoiled us for all of these years. I can't imagine how we're ever going to recover, but luckily you'll still be amongst us, and we wish you congratulations and thanks for your incredible work after all of these years. Thank you, Michael. You're the best.
We are picking up where we left off with Hillary Cassell and Tom Fabrizio, state reps, talking about property insurance. Tom, you were about to talk about why the insurance companies got so much, and at least in the immediate near term, property owners got so little.
Well, it's a two-part issue. Part one has to do with the fact that the reason why reinsurance carriers, by and large, are having trouble with providing and placing reinsurance in Florida has to do with the gross amount of litigation that we have in Florida. 116,000 cases that we had in Florida in 2021 versus about 1,000 in each other state. It's a huge problem, and it's actually shameful that we have that much litigation in Florida. Part two of the problem has to do with the fact that law in Florida requires that when we enter into a contract, those terms and the laws that affected that contract stay in place. So the fact that we're going ahead and we've made these monumental changes, which are going to provide massive consumer relief in the future. The fact is that because of these 2 hurricanes that took place this year, and because of the Irma tail that we're still experiencing, that litigation will remain in place. Unfortunately, we just can't end that litigation, but we can change the laws going forward, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, Hillary Cassell, as you know better than almost anyone, one of the really big problems with property insurance in the state was the policy that allowed a plaintiff to sue an insurance company if they thought their settlement was insufficient. And if they won, then the insurance company had to pay the legal fees of the homeowner. Now, did that just go away? Isn't that what part of what happened in these bills?
So that actually went away after the passing of Senate Bill 76, when there was an institution of what's called a notice of intent to initiate litigation. And there was a whole revision of the attorney's fee structure that put it into a percentages, almost like a prevailing party, that if you were asking too much or demanding too much and you didn't get it, you could be on the hook for the insurance company's fees. Sadly, we didn't let those reforms go into effect. And now what we've done is say all policyholders are responsible for paying their own attorney's fees. Well, when insurance companies wrongfully deny and underpay claims, which sadly they do, and that's a part of this equation that the legislature hasn't looked into and has not forced OIR, our now former insurance commissioner, to look at. And we've never really looked under the hood as to why there's so much litigation. But yes, you're completely right. Now this bill completely strips away an insured's right for holding insurance companies accountable when they wrongfully deny and underpay claims. Now they're going to be out of pocket, which means they're never going to have enough money to fix their homes.
So, Tom,
Michael, I apologize, but she's shifting the issue. Your question had to do with will those attorney's fees go away immediately? My response previously was that yes, going forward, they'll go away, but for all the pending litigation and for all the litigation that's forthcoming as a result of Hurricane Ian and Nicole and the still pending litigation out of Hurricane Irma, those fees don't go away. And that's a large reason why these reinsurance carriers are staying away from Florida for the foreseeable future. That's why we're not seeing premiums come down immediately.
Okay, point well taken. But in the longer term and with the structural changes, address how a homeowner can now, in the long term, and when this all happens, how can a homeowner afford to file what might be a very legitimate claim against his or her insurer? How does that help the homeowner get whole against an insurer without that kind of financial balance?
Glenda, that's a great question. In the American system for attorney's fees are that each party pays their own attorney's fees. And in the personal injury realm here in Florida, generally, contingency agreements are entered into between lawyers and their clients where the attorney will be able to receive a portion, usually between 33 and 40% of what that attorney is able to get for that in that litigation. The problem we've been having here with the one-way fees is that it's only one way. There's no risk that the attorney and the plaintiff filing that lawsuit is going to have to cover fees if they are wrong, number one. That's one of the reasons why this was taken out. And number two, this doesn't change the fact that there still are proposal for settlement rules, offers of judgments, and other elements under Chapter 57 that will allow recovery of fees in egregious situations. And bad faith still remains at play if the plaintiff is able to prove that there was a breach of contract.
Yeah. Hillary, the legislature, you and your fellow legislators, took some real action to try to pare down the number of people who are insured through Citizens Insurance, the state-owned company, the insurer of last resort, allegedly. 1.1 million people have policies there. But one of the things that you all did, maybe you didn't like this, was to require every Citizens policy holder to get flood insurance. Well, for example, I live on the 22nd floor of a condominium. I don't live in a flood zone, but if Citizens were my insurer, I'd still have to pay for flood insurance. Where's the fairness there?
You know, there isn't fairness. You know, the reality is the Citizens component of this bill actually raises rates so they eventually will be more expensive than the private marketplace. The Citizens component also now requires mandatory flood insurance. And the reality is, with no guarantee that rates are going to go down, people already can't afford just property insurance. Now they're being mandated to get flood. And just like you said, Michael, in your situation, when you don't really need it. You know, so the Citizens component of this bill really is harmful to especially those constituents and those residents in South Florida who more likely than not will still have Citizens as their only option. But that's what happens when you rush legislation through, you know, when you don't take time to listen to all stakeholders that might have ideas or different solutions, then raising people's rates, no guarantee of bringing them down, taking all resources available to hold their insurance companies accountable, and now making it mandatory that they carry insurance when the federal government may not require them to.
You know, a lot of the talk over the 48 hours that this was going through was the insane amount of fraud in the insurance industry. We in the news business know that is absolutely a fact. So, Tom, now that one of the things to sort of mitigate the fraud was taking away the assignment of benefits, AOB, insurance companies can no longer be paying contractors directly, circumventing the homeowners. But I guess people want to know, if there's so much fraud, why isn't anybody being held accountable for the fraud that's going on right now, be it contractors, be it insurance companies, be it any part of that layered process? Where is the consequence and accountability for that now?
Well, I've spoken with our CFO, Jimmy Petronis, and he assures me that the different agencies under the CFO's realm are taking charge of that and making sure that they are seeking to bring all folks that are defrauding to the law. But one thing that I got to mention with regard to citizens and the flood policies, the flood policy requirement is going to be phased in, and it will be fully phased in pursuant to this bill by 2027. It is not an immediate effect. It is for current citizens policyholders to be phased in, and we definitely expect that by 2027, the insurance market will be fully balanced at that point. And the point here is that Citizens is an insurer of last resort, and it should be. And if a person doesn't want to apply, doesn't want to have to conform to the Citizens requirements, they should be able to avail themselves of the private market.
Yeah. Tom, let me ask you, I know we all know that money is the mother's milk of politics, and there's a lot of money from the insurance industry that has been contributed to lawmakers. One report I saw said $15.6 million was given out to state legislators in the 2022 election cycle. And all I can say is it looks like the insurance companies got a good return on their investment.
Michael, I'd say that the trial bar and FJA is also funding and passing out the checks just as well. And I imagine that Hillary Cassell, who is a member of the trial bar, is the beneficiary of that.
Hillary, even the governor this week said that come spring session, there will likely be more on the plate for the lawmakers to possibly give homeowners a bit more relief on property insurance. The Democrats, more than a dozen amendments in both sides of the chambers, none made it here. Do you foresee, or maybe you and the caucus are already writing bills that you'll try to get in for spring session about this?
You know, absolutely. And the Democrats put forth a plan that would have allowed the insurance market to stabilize, and it would have been affordable, available, and accountable for consumers. And none of that was taken up. You know, I think one of the things that we haven't spoken about is the absolute lack of transparency from the Office of Insurance Regulation. And it's not a coincidence that 24 hours, less than 24 hours after we gavelled out of special session, that our insurance commissioner resigned after he delivered what I believe to be the insurance industry's holiday wish list of reforms. You know, everything that comes at the back of consumers does not lower their rates, no guarantee that their rates will ever be lowered, and simply gives insurance companies the ability to take premiums and never have to pay claims and have people available to hold them accountable.
We understand, and there remains a lot of work to be done by you two, Hillary Cassell, Tom Fabricio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and best of luck, Michael. Congratulations on an amazing career.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, up next, a full plate for Congress as it nears its term deadline.
And a South Florida member of Congress who is in the thick of things there will join us next.
Hi, this is Congresswoman Sheila Sheffield McCormick, and I would like to send a heartfelt congratulations, Michael Putney, on your decades of service, reporting the news, taking the deep dive, and really letting everyone know the truth behind politics and what's going on. We wish you the greatest retirement possible, and thank you for your years of service.
Congress is meeting in a lame duck session, and remarkably, they are getting quite a bit done.
With a deadline in sight. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is in the thick of it with a new post on the Democratic leadership team in the House. She is with us live from Weston. Congresswoman, good morning.
Good morning, Glenna and Michael. Great to be with you.
And great to see you. And let me just again say thank you very much. The Congresswoman came to Channel 10 on Friday, presented me with she had read into the Congressional Record a very nice complimentary remarks, and then gave me a flag that had flown over the Capitol. I treasure that. So, Congresswoman, thank you so much. Very, very appreciated.
You are very welcome, Michael. We wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you. All right, now to the tough questions, which you know are going to come.
The nice part's over now.
Tomorrow, as you well know, the January 6th committee is going to issue its recommendations on its findings, and it is believed that they are going to recommend that the Department of Justice indict or bring criminal charges against former President Trump. Should that happen?
Well, I think the January 6th Select Committee has spent the last 17 months engaging in a very thorough, granular investigation that has revealed shocking evidence that points directly to former President Trump, that he was engaged and conspired with others to overturn the results of a legitimate election to be able to relieve himself in power. That is insurrection at its highest level, and so it would not surprise me if my colleagues on the Select Committee tomorrow vote to refer those criminal charges, to the Justice Department. And then, of course, it remains completely within the Justice Department's discretion to determine how to deal with that referral.
Congresswoman, I want to ask you about something that we reported at the top of this program. Americans who are stuck near Machu Picchu, sort of caught up and stranded by political chaos in another country. What we know from the rescue efforts from the State Department is on Twitter. Can you give us some sort of inside look? Are you satisfied with the efforts being done to save Americans?
I'm confident that the State Department is doing everything they can to be able to get Americans who are stuck in the midst of a very difficult and thorny political situation and that are unacceptably unable to leave that country at this point, to get them out. I know that that's something that that Secretary Blinken and the President are committed to, and that they're diligently working to do that.
Yeah. Congresswoman, this week, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, who will be the House Minority Leader, appointed you one of 3 co-chairs of a policy committee. I mean, this is really a big deal for the future, your future, in the House. But in practical terms, what does this mean? What will you do?
Well, I'm very appreciative of incoming leader Jeffries' confidence as one of the 3 co-chairs of the Steering and Policy Committee. I'll be able to be part of the leadership team that will coordinate our efforts in terms of advancing our agenda and defending against the onslaught that we expect to be coming from the House majority. So there's a very policy-focused purpose of this assignment. But the Steering and Policy Committee is also responsible for working with members to make sure that they get their committee assignments, and also elect our ranking members and committee chairs when we're in the majority. So it has a pretty broad scope, and my role puts me at the leadership table, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues to make sure that they realize their goals so that they can be the most effective on behalf of their constituents, as well as championing our agenda, which is really important.
Onslaught is such an interesting word. What are you expecting? What does onslaught mean to you?
Well, an onslaught really is comparable to an avalanche, if we can find another synonym. I expect an avalanche of wild-haired investigations. The Republicans are now controlled by a MAGA majority who, I sit on the House Oversight Committee, so as a member of that committee, I expect, as they said right out of the gate, right after they won the majority, the first thing they talked about was not what they're going to accomplish. The first thing they talked about was investigating Hunter Biden's laptop.
And his laptop, yeah. I mean, to what end? Other than embarrassing the president, that his son, who has had a kind of a checkered career, maybe he's straightened out his life now, but other than embarrassing Mr. Biden, what is the point of looking at his laptop?
More importantly, how could that possibly have been what they led off with after securing the majority? You would think that they would want to use their newfound power and the tools that come with it to help make other people's lives better. I would assume that that's why some of them ran for Congress. It's certainly why I did. Really spending the next 2 years, I expect to be dealing with an attack after attack from the Republican MAGA majority to do everything they can to undermine President Biden, who has done a really remarkable job getting shots in arms, people back at work, creating the historic job growth, and frankly making sure that we can move America forward. That's what we all should be working together to do.
Congresswoman, I want to, before we let you go, a little bit more about news of the week. This is actually a Texas story unfolding at the border, but with huge South Florida implications. Title 42, the mechanism for immigration that since President Trump has been used as public health policy to keep would-be asylum seekers from coming into the country. That looks like it is about to end on Wednesday. And at the border right now, they're really predicting a surge in numbers, which we've already been seeing, and at crisis levels. What is the administration doing right now in preparation for Wednesday to be both secure and humanitarian as this all comes to a head?
Well, being secure and humanitarian have been at the top of the Biden administration's agenda when it comes to ensuring that immigrants can safely come to this country, particularly if they are fleeing persecution. We've been fighting the Republicans at every turn. They've done nothing but really engage in extremist rhetoric to combat and prevent people who simply want to come and make a better way of life for themselves, including our own governor, who illegally brought Venezuelan migrants from Texas in violation of state law to Martha's Vineyard. What we should be doing is working together to pass comprehensive immigration reform, to protect the dreamers that are here in this country, to make sure that farm workers can come back and forth and do the work that we need them to do to continue to boost our economy. But right now, with the MAGA extremist majority that's coming to the House, I expect that we'll hear nothing but anti-immigrant.
But is there, I mean, in the immediate future, is there a plan that you can share with us for Wednesday?
I am confident that the Biden administration is preparing to be able to safely process people as they approach the border. What we don't need to be doing is engaging in the kind of extremist, non-factual rhetoric that Republicans have been, where they act as if there are immigrants streaming across our borders, which is not the case. And we need to make sure that we can properly process people, be able to make sure that they have a safe place to go, that they come and are held accountable and show up for their court dates, just like we've done for decades. But Republicans have continually thrown obstacle after obstacle in the path of achieving that.
Yeah. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, always good to speak with you. And once again, thank you for the flag that flew over the Capitol. My wife and I will treasure that.
You're welcome, and best of luck. And thanks so much for your years of service to our community, Michael.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, up next, another retiring journalist who changed hearts and minds in South Florida.
Who would that be? Leonard Pitts is live with us next.
Hey, Michael Putney. This is Dave Barry, and I want to congratulate you on a great career, on being a consummate professional in this market, and above all, on somehow going 33 years of covering Miami politicians and still being sane. I don't know how you did it, man, but congrats, best of luck, love you.
So let me say thanks to my old friend Dave Barry. Dave, thank you for your comments, and Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, member of Congress, and also for Fernan Amandi. Thank you all, very moving. Now we're going to have another old friend of mine. South Florida and the nation have been comforted and shaken up over the last 30 years by the words of our next guest, writer and columnist Leonard Pitts Jr.
Who are you calling old? Leonard Pitts, his final column appeared Thursday in the Miami Herald, where he's appeared since 1991. He started there as a music critic and became a preeminent social critic. Leonard Pitts joins us from Maryland in the cold, where he and his family now live.
Hey, Leonard.
So nice to have you with us.
Great to see you. How are you?
Good to be there. Thank you.
All right, so in your column, first front page this week in the Herald, you said that you just knew it was time. I mean, you're 65, you've written 4 novels, you want to write more. How did you know it was time?
Columns started getting to be a lot harder to write. that was one sure cue. And I don't know if it was a professional version of senioritis once I knew that this is what I wanted to do or what, but I know that ordinarily there's sort of this pattern where, you'll have columns that are moderately hard and columns that just sort of flow, and then there's one or two that are just like you're just fighting for every word. And I've noticed a lot more over the last year and a half. There were a lot more columns where I was like fighting for every word, it's like fighting for every inch of ground on a battlefield. You're just fighting, to make the column behave, sit there on the page and say what I'm trying to say and stop, nattering back at me. They became very unruly and very difficult to write over the last year, 2 years.
You know, that's so interesting to hear you say that, because to me, reading your columns, you had that kind of, the depth was there, but the writing was so simple, and you just had a way of saying something and having your reader say, that's exactly how I feel. I just could not have ever said it that well.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to seem easy. It's supposed to read easy, but you're not supposed to be able to look at it and know how much or how little, difficulty there was with the column. So thank you. That tells me that at least, all the wrestling with the columns, paid off.
Yes.
Leonard, you have, I really mean this so deeply, helped us all through some terrible moments in this country over the last number of years with your columns. And I'm not saying that it was one of those terrible moments, but in Georgia with the election, the Senate election, when Herschel Walker was a candidate, you wrote some brilliant columns, and one of them essentially said this was an attempt or an opportunity for some white people to tell black men especially how they should behave. As if they knew better than black men.
Yeah, that's been sort of a frustration of mine for, I don't know, many years. That if you are a black columnist, particularly a black male columnist, you are going to receive emails from people who are explaining to you how to be a man, how to be a black man. And, one is the frustration comes from the fact that the people giving you this advice have no standing, no relevant experience based on how to give it. But two, the advice that they're giving is advice that generally would be good for all of us, for any of us, to be present in your children's lives, get education, et cetera, et cetera. But they feel a special need for, their own reasons to give this advice to black men. And then these same folk turn around and support a black man who basically, exhibits none of the qualities that they are saying that they claim to prize in this advice. Herschel Walker is not, not a good father, apparently, at least not a present father for his kids, according to the kids. Has abused women, got dropped out of college, is a stranger to the English language, and on and on and on. So it just, the hypocrisy, and this isn't the first time or the only case in which I felt that, but the hypocrisy just reeks, and it just felt necessary to say that.
I think one of the legacies you and your writing probably leave South Florida is instructing our diverse community on what it's like to be a Black American. As we speak, our state, our country is just so divided over what a lot of people call culture wars, one of which is the way we teach history of race in the United States. And I would love to hear from you when you hear someone say they are anti-woke. What does that mean to you? How do you hear that?
It means that they are anti any discussion of systemic injustices in this country. And what's astonishing to me is that that's not just me saying that. That was a representative of Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, saying that a few weeks ago in a federal court. And it just blew my mind. The court asked him to define woke. What does it mean that you're anti-woke? And I really would have expected that they're going to say something, outlandish and red meat and really, insane. And the definition that he gave was actually quite fair. He said that woke, to be woke is to be concerned with and, wanting to oppose systemic injustice and want to be aware of systemic injustice and to believe there is systemic injustice. Yeah. So how are you anti that? That is what really just blows my mind. I guess to answer my own question, I suppose it's easy to be anti that when you are a beneficiary of those systemic injustices.
Yeah, and
but for the rest of us, I'm sorry, go on, sir.
No, I was just going to say, and we do, as you have written about, have a new law in Florida that says that children in school may not be taught about things that make them feel embarrassed, ashamed, about what their ancestors had done. If your ancestor had owned slaves, for example, we shouldn't teach that because people will, some children may feel embarrassed. I mean, maybe they should feel embarrassed, and maybe that's the right reaction.
Yeah, there's this tendency for us to want to treat white kids, and only white kids, frankly, like egg cartons treat eggs. to cradle them, to cushion them on all sides, to make sure that they go through, the process without the slightest bump or bruise. And whenever I think about this, I always think of this white kid that I met 11 years ago. Ryan was his name, and I was with him as he watched a documentary on the murder of Emmett Till, and he was appalled, and he was felt all of these complex feelings as a white kid, watching what white kids had done to this black child. But then he said what it did was it encouraged him and energized him to want to be better, to want to be a better ally to marginalized people. And I suspect that would probably be a common refrain among a lot of white kids if their white parents would simply get out of the way and stop trying to protect them from what has already happened and from what is reality.
Yeah. Leonard, it is such a pleasure to have you on our show, and I guess I'm just going to have to start reading more of your novels. I've read
Well,
one.
thank you.
I think the last time we spoke, I had read your first novel. I'll read the others, and wish you well in everything you do. And thank you for your wonderful columns.
And happy retirement to you as well. I'm wondering who's going to be left in South Florida.
I'll be here.
Seems like a lot of
Hello,
us seem to be heading for the door all at once.
Glenn is here. Nancy Ancrum's at the Herald. There's some good people here.
There you go.
All right,
Leonard.
thanks. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Hey, Michael, congratulations on your retirement. We're going to miss you, but you've inspired so many of us to stay informed and get involved. Thank you for that and for your service to our community.
It has been a long and winding road to today and my final edition of This Week in South Florida. We started this show on Channel 10 33 years ago. It will go on, of course, but without me, no one is indispensable. And as it says in Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. My season at Channel 10 has been fantastic. I'm grateful to the management for letting me cover the stories that matter to me and matter to you. Politics, government, public policy, malfeasance, misfeasance. We focused on taxes, safe streets, crime, gun violence, making sure our kids go to the good schools and that courts dispense justice. Big topics, critical topics. I thank Channel 10 for allowing us to discuss them here, and I thank you for tuning in and sending your emails and texts. Lately, however, there has been a problem. Many of the top decision makers, mainly congressmen, senators, the governor, and a few others refuse to come on our show to discuss these issues because they think that there is nothing to be gained politically by coming on. All they want are venues where they get softball questions. Well, our political differences and divisions will never heal until we start talking to one another seriously, courteously, and respectfully. Senator Rubio, I'm talking to you, and a few others. So for now, I want to thank you for your loyalty and support over the years. Most of all, thanks for inviting us into your homes. We're privileged to be there. Democracy is not a spectator sport. You can't just sit on the sidelines to make it work. You've got to get into the game, support a cause, support a candidate, and vote. Always vote. As I say at the end of every show, and as I'm going to say now for the last time on Local 10, stay informed, get involved. Thank you.
Remember, we used to do one of these.
Yes, we did.
So I have a gift before you leave for you. It's a mug, not a beer stein. I don't know if you could say it says Sunday Fun Day. So now you and Karen can actually have brunch at the right time. My goodness. And we wish you the best for your new beginnings. We'll miss you.
I may put something in this other than coffee.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you.